I don't know. I feel like I've talked to so many girls who have at some point indicated that like getting gangbanged by 13 werewolves in a park during nighttime or something is like a dream come true for them, you know?
That's oddly
13?
specific.
Okay, should police be able to use deadly force?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
We.
No.
Yep.
What? No.
They have to have the ability to. Especially
Yeah.
here in the States, I mean. Got a lot of
Oh,
guns
yeah.
around here. Don't want a gun in private hands to be an anti-cop button. But we should definitely, have much stricter expectations for use of force than we have now, I think.
If they couldn't
fuck are
use
we gonna
deadly
do?
force, why would they wouldn't have guns then, right?
The fuck
Yeah.
are we
They
gonna
have
do if someone
guns
shoots
in
up
New
a
Zealand.
school?
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna just do?
Yeah.
Shoot the guy in the shin
I
and
guess
hope
that
for
wasn't
the
as
best?
good of a question as I thought it would be. Maybe I should
No,
choose a
no.
different
Oh, I'm
question.
sure.
Let's
Oh,
talk
I'm
about the
sure
death
if we
penalty.
talk
We're
long
talking.
enough, we'll find something we disagree on.
Let's talk about the death penalty then.
Wait, no, Pixel. I want to know. Do cops have guns in Australia?
I'm pretty sure some of them do, but most of them only have tasers because we don't have guns here.
Same.
So it's not so much as like we need guns to be able to defend against people with guns. Whereas in America, it's entirely different because half their national identity is based around fucking guns. And
Yeah, we have a
you
lot
know,
of guns in
freedom
this
and being
country.
able to protect yourselves against tyrannical government, not like us
When
over
our-
here in
when
Australia
our
without
homeless
tyrannical
people-
government.
When our
When
homeless
do
people
we
dig through the
deploy?
trash, they have to get in a shootout with raccoons already.
Exactly.
inside. Yeah.
Chad Logic, do they have guns? Do cops carry guns in the UK?
I
Good
think
chat.
some do. Wait,
Some do.
hold on. I
He's
think I've
muted.
asked this question. Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of them do. I've seen some photos of them with it, but it's not every one of them, right?
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
from
probably,
Canada.
like,
All
I-
cops have guns here.
Chad,
Bobbies,
we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
you're muted.
Oh shit, sorry. You've got sorry about that. You've got specialized firearms units. So you've got your beat cops, they don't carry guns, they carry a big old fuck off truncheon, and some of them maybe have got a taser or some shit like that. But if there's like a shooting or something like that, or if there's a black guy walking around that needs to be killed, going about his business, they call the specialized, they're like, listen, there's a black fella here, looks a bit suspicious. Get some fucking cops with guns down here now, we need to take him out at once. That's kinda how it goes.
Damn.
I mean, he's
I-
not
Sounds like
wrong.
America.
I just want to say, I don't know if this means anything, but every once in a while, I feel like there's a Twitter post from one of the UK's police agencies saying like, "We've taken this gun off the street today, lads. Yes, we did." And it's some like 17th century flintlock pistol. I feel like the cops who do carry guns, like that's what they're waiting for, right? They're waiting for somebody to pull out like a fucking musket. Or a blunderbuss, and start like pointing out the window of the Big Ben and start firing like duck shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. The
Hey,
U.S. cops
basically-
just post weed and go, "We got this drug off the streets." So I don't know.
Basically,
Oh,
the
he's
way it
got a
goes,
Teenager.
the tiers over here, you got number one, butter knife, yeah?
Yeah.
Number two is like sharp wit, because obviously we're very witty over here. Number three is like blunderbuss or musket, that's the kind of order of weapons you tend to go with.
That fucking slaps though. It's like rock paper scissors kind of.
Yeah, sure.
I like to get onto panels where they're talking about like cops and stuff, and like unironically argue that like all cops should be armed with like Kraft sliced Kraft sliced cheese singles, right? Have you ever seen people cheesing people where they throw the sliced cheese on somebody's face and like they're so?
Oh yeah, we do that a lot in
No.
Australia. We do it at politicians too, except with
Oh,
eggs.
really?
Anyway,
but
that's fine.
once,
Yeah.
once in New Zealand, there was like someone threw a dildo at a politician doing like a speech. It was so base.
Didn't
It was
somebody
great.
throw shit
It
at
was
Sargon?
hilarious.
That's what happens when you decriminalize sex work, okay? That's what happens. You get dildos thrown at your politicians.
I'm pretty
Fucking
sure
bugger.
Sargon of Akkad got horse shit thrown at him.
We had a
Good
milkshake
God.
from him, right?
Poor
He got a.
cow.
Wait,
Yeah,
sorry.
He
back
got
to the
milkshakes
cheese
a few
slices.
times.
What was the point since we spiraled from cheese slices to dildos?
Right. So I was
It's a
just
natural
saying, like,
progression.
I like to jump onto panels where they're talking about cops and stuff, and just unironically start arguing for why we should have cheese slices as their choice of weapon. I also will jump onto panels and advocate for abolishing schools and putting children directly into the workforce. So I think that's always funny. Yeah.
We
Wait,
I mean, I do-
is the second one unironic too?
Obviously these are like jokes that I'm doing, right? But I argue for them seriously. So
Cool.
You just have a very like serious tone of voice when you speak, so I can imagine this going down really well.
oh, people get
And
really
just,
mad
like-
sometimes. They
Oh,
get
it's
really
so
mad.
funny. It's so funny.
I do. It's. I mean,
We should
there
argue
is
for-
a refutation of the whole an armed society is a polite society thing, right? Because the gun culture in the United States is fucking ridiculous. We're not doing it to resist government power at all. We're really doing it to to hand off Uzis to 13-year-olds so they can blow their own faces off at the gun shows we irresponsibly bring them to, or we just have an available glut of firearms so that people with psychiatric issues who want to shoot up their school always have a friend they know they can buy it off of. It's some weird shit with the gun culture in this country, you know?
But it's so entrenched in your national identity, like
so
hunting.
entrenched, yeah.
It's like it's hunting. It is freedom or whatever your fucking
Freedom.
conceptualization of freedom is, right? Like that's why it's never going anywhere. And I have no idea how you even begin to navigate it, because when half your country think that any sort of regulation is like, you're taking away my freedom.
Yeah, back to the original question though. If we have this many guns
Sorry.
in the country, and like if they tried to remove weapons from police officers right now, that would not go well.
Yeah, would not.
That would.
I
not-
agree.
yeah.
I
Here's
think
what we're saying.
I honestly think that it is so entrenched in our culture. I don't see it as a worthwhile thing for us to be, the whole outlawing guns thing, right? I don't think that's like a really worthwhile thing. We're wasting a lot of time with that. I think we need to
agree.
innovate. We need to innovate somehow with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, not to
why-
pretend
We
like
can
I'm like
weaponize
Tim
it.
Pool or something, but like if guns were banned tomorrow and then they started knocking on your door, actually taking your guns, I don't think that would go over very well, especially in certain
No.
southern
No.
states.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
What are you
why-
gonna say,
Take
RI?
away
RI?
guns.
Sorry, IRI. Sorry. What
Oh,
do you
I
say?
think we have to accept that gun culture is here and we have to weaponize it. So, for example, pass a law that every single homeless person gets a free gun. You would
Yeah,
solve
go on.
homelessness, not through them killing each other. People are like, I'm not going to let homeless people get guns, and we got to get them off the street right now. So, weaponize the gun culture.
I just don't know if that's how it would play out, though, right?
I don't know,
I feel like a
giving
lot of
poor
people would
people
just be
things.
like, fine, give the homeless people guns, and when they come to rob me, I'll shoot them because we have equal force. Like,
What
I
about
don't know
give
about
children
you.
guns?
I don't know about you.
What about
but
what?
rich,
Child,
rich
and
white
when you're
people hate
born, you're-
giving poor people things.
when you're
Give every
born, you
children
get a gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every child a gun. Every homeless child, at least.
I would like a gun. No, that's why I was asking about other countries' cops with guns, because obviously you cannot take it away from American cops, because what the fuck are they gonna do then? Like, there's just it's just
They're gonna run around with
be a-
cheese. Yeah.
It's gonna be terrible. Like, it's just not. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense in America.
Who's going to
but
kill
in-
all the minorities?
Oh, I'm sure someone will pick up that mantle.
I don't know. If the cops won't do it, it seems like we'd solve a
Well-
lot of problems.
I mean, true, but also there's I don't know.
maybe
they just
it's gun
won't.
usage in specific situations, right? Like,
Yeah, it seems
depending
like-
on the kind of call.
It seems
is
like in
whether or
other
not guns
countries that is what we do. Like New Zealand,
Yeah.
Australia, and England. That seems to be what the cops do. Is it's like not every cop just walking around carries a gun. I don't know about, like, that's fucking terrifying to me. Like, I don't know this guy. I don't know if this guy's in a costume and not a real cop. Like, I don't know if he just shot and killed a cop and took his stuff and it is just like a crazy person walking around with a gun. I don't know anything about him. I don't know if he's gonna racially profile me or like be weird or whatever. Like, why is he like at a ball with a gun? No, thank you. No, I don't like that. Cops scare me, like, anyways. But that's also because I live in a country where our cops have never done that. So it's like obviously very normal for Americans, but it scares the shit out of me.
So
Okay.
Oh no, it's okay.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, when I was walking around in Texas and then there were people open carrying in like supermarkets, I was fucking freaked out as shit. Like, it was so weird, and I was like, am I about to die? Like, I was literally shopping for like lettuce, and it was like, am I about to die because this person has like guns, like just open carry, just
Yeah, and you
wild.
don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna have like a unpopular opinion here. But like I would rather have cops like around me having guns. It just I think that they need to have the quickest way to like if something is really going down, if they show up to like a domestic disturbance and like somebody's like beating up their kid and the kid's about to die, like
They shouldn't
like,
send a social
I mean,
worker?
no, they should not send a social worker. I fucking hate that. I'm sorry. You can send a social worker along with the cop,
Yeah.
but hell no. Absolutely not. You're going to tell me that a social worker can...
But that's a straw man. Nobody's advocating for that. Like, we're talking about if you get an offender bender on
I
the
don't
side
know.
of
I've
the
got...
street.
I
Like,
think
why do
there
we
are
need to send
some
a cop
people
I've
on
there?
the
gotten
left
into some
that argue for
arguments
that.
where people have unironically argued that we should just have social workers showing up at people's doors for domestic violence issues. And
Those are
it's
trolls like you on panel.
Well, wait, hold on, wait.
I don't know.
Wait, hold on. So, I think this is something we should really defer to data on. The vast majority of stuff cops respond to doesn't lead to violence, and if you look at numbers based on like neighborhood and type of call, it skews much more heavily. I think like 8% of police responses involve some like meaningful threat of violence, but if like a lot of those you could see coming, right? I mean, if people are saying like, oh, there's a shooter, or like, oh, here's DV, like that seems fairly obvious. But a lot of what cops do is like so unlikely that violence is going to happen, you know? Like checking up on folks on parole, like traffic stuff. There's a bunch of stuff they do that is just it's incredibly unlikely that violence gets involved. You know, cops die at like what, 1/8 the rate of pizza delivery drivers. I feel like we overstate sometimes the dangers associated with police work because we repeat propaganda talking points they disseminate in order to justify always maintaining a constant high level of potential threat. I think one of the best things we could do for this as well is normalizing some cultural stuff that would decrease the likelihood of police being necessary in the future. People are on edge around police. Nobody likes being around the police, or at least very few people do. It's always yeah. So I think if you mitigate stuff like that, you turn down the aggression dial, maybe that percentage point of risk starts to decrease a little bit. I don't think people would like prey on the social workers necessarily, because of course, if a social worker gets hurt, the cops will show up. So it's
But
not
why
like
do we
you're
have to have that social
incentivized.
worker
we
get
don't
hurt when
need
we
it.
could send a cop with a social worker?
Just send a cop.
Should we
And
send a cop with
8%,
every
that
pizza
8%,
delivery
I'm sorry,
driver?
the 8% number doesn't mean shit to me because that's 8% of like threat of violence.
Wait,
it doesn't matter
did we
if
just-
that's 1%.
Hold on, do we just compare
No,
a
it-
domestic dispute to a pizza delivery?
The pizza delivery guys die way more often than cops do. Should we send a cop to escort every pizza delivery?
Well, a pizza delivery
I
man
mean-
can have a gun in his car if he's like got like a certification, right?
I don't think they bring it to the door with them. The point that I'm getting at here is that that 8%, the 1% number, these skew elsewhere. The fact is, any job where you move around the city is going to be dangerous in some way or another. But we can't constantly overstate the dangers associated with police work as a way of maintaining their incredibly bloated budgets.
About the
We should
danger.
find
It's not
ways-
about the danger to the police. That's not what I'm arguing about. What I'm talking about is the danger to the person who is the victim in that situation. I don't give a fuck,
most
right? Like if
cop
you're
calls don't have
if
a
you're
victim.
Well, even if it's
yeah, most don't, but there's still 8%, like you said, where there's
And
threat of
send the
violence,
police
right?
to the ones where you think there's a likelihood of police being needed.
Doesn't
So-
matter.
Police
We don't.
police
You
for
can't
everything.
determine that. You can't determine that in every case. You
police
can't
officer-
determine that in the
Wait,
majority of these
hold on,
cases.
wait. Your argument's logical extension is that every single civic function should be done by the police because you never know if there's a chance at violence. Every delivery,
No, if somebody
every
is
clerk
calling the
position,
police
everything.
for if somebody is calling the police for it, like a reason where they feel like they're threatened, then we need to send the police.
If they
we
feel
don't
like they're
send,
threatened, yes. Wait, yes. If they feel like they're threatened, then yes. But that's not the majority of what cops do.
Wait, but a
We should
police
find
officer
ways
doesn't
of-
like know
That's
their
what she said the whole time.
yeah, a police officer
Time.
doesn't know their whole schedule when they wake up
She's
in the
been saying that the
morning.
whole time.
So, even like
No,
a
but
traffic
we-
cop could be in a situation where he needs a weapon at some point in the day.
Yeah, every person could conceivably be in a situation
Yeah,
where
but
they need a
every
weapon at some
person
point.
isn't dealing with like crime.
Every person is not being
Wait,
called
no.
on to protect them, right? Like
Wait,
to be
cops aren't
protected.
always, no, wait, hold on. Cops aren't always being called to protect things. Cops do a ton of different types of work.
They do.
And dispatchers.
I'm not talking about the other types of work. We're talking explicitly about the type where it is violent or there's a threat of being it being
Nobody
violent.
would advocate sending a social worker in those situations. You talk about the
Right.
rote managerial work that cops do, admin stuff, some traffic stuff. There are lots of things that cops could potentially facilitate that that social workers could facilitate with like virtually no risk of violence. And if you think that any risk of violence warrants sending a cop, then cops should be sent for all civic functions because there's
I got a
always going to
question.
be some risk.
I think you should just
Wait,
have
can I-
specific teams with like social workers and cops in almost every situation, and you should be trained to not inflict violence if the situation doesn't call for violence. So like you have to get rid of the systemic racism. You have to get rid of the shoot first mentality, right? But you should be sending a social worker into a cop into a lot of these situations, if not almost all of them.
Wait, I've got a question for Vaush. I have to ask this, okay?
Here we
So basically, when we think about a violent case, right, where a police officer would need to be dispatched, are we keeping cops because for the most part cops patrol? This is just like a general fact of policing. Usually they're in their patrol cars driving around, right? So for that kind of thing, would we need to send, because that's a non-violent thing, would we need to send them back to the station before they get dispatched out to the whatever violent crime scene, pick up a weapon for a specific task, and then delay what could potentially be a dangerous thing, and then send them out there?
No, if there are cops out on patrol, their guns would have firearms in it. Cops always
So-
are armed in the States.
So, yeah, I know this to be true, but the thing is if we're talking about like de-arming police officers and
No.
all of this stuff,
No, we're
We're
not.
not talking about that. We're not
Okay,
talking
We're
about that.
talking
We're-
about delegating some functions the police fill to social workers. Something which
By
has
the way,
been
the
done
pizza
get some
delivery
examples?
statistic, the pizza
but this-
delivery statistic is incorrect.
Hold on.
wait,
No.
but wait, this is the
We're
thing. though,
cracking
with
the stats
pizza-
out. Let's fucking go.
Okay, but this is the thing with like the pizza delivery guy then too. Like, I feel like if that's a dangerous thing and we're still arming police officers even though it's supposed to be less dangerous, like, shouldn't we already arm social workers off the cuff?
Well, I suppose we could, but it's not so much about whether or not they're armed. It's about the responsibilities that they're trained to handle. And ideally, you would want these guys to be de-escalatory. One of the problems with cops is that their presence often increases the likelihood of violence, depending on the neighborhood and a bunch of other conditions, because cops are, in America at least, machismo-fueled, like, monster can chugging.
Right,
like,
so I completely
rageaholics.
agree with you. I completely agree with you. But when we talk about the risk of safety to it sounds like in that case, it would logically follow that we could just send out social workers with guns and everything gets handled bada bing.
Well, because
bada
then
boom.
the social workers will be treated as police, basically, in like the minds of everybody if they're armed.
do-
Flush.
But then they still have the de-escalatory
Difference.
training. They still have the
So then we should just make
de-escalatory
police
training.
officers have de-escalatory training.
Yeah, just
I like
how about
this.
we just
I like this.
how about we
Police
just
This is what I'm
change
trying to get at, though.
how about we
way
just
more per
yeah
year
so
than
I
social
agree with Nick
workers do.
here. I agree with Nick here because we should just be we should be training sure there's room for improvement in the way that we train police, right? But I still
get to.
will
Oh my
not
God.
advocate I am not going to advocate for a social worker to show up to a call where somebody has called for police. I'm just not going to. If you want to hire somebody
wait.
else to do
Wait, for what,
paperwork,
though?
right? That's
Wait,
fine.
wait.
But
No, wait, but for what call? Like, what are they calling for?
for like for a domestic violence situation or something
for
like that.
violence, then yeah, cops should
Yeah,
probably
nobody's
See,
nobody's.
this
So
is
wait,
the
Vosh,
thing.
where do you
I-
advocate?
I-
Hold on, Vosh.
Wait.
But Stardust, how do they like? There's countries where they don't have guns right now. Like I just read online, 90% of UK cops don't carry a gun.
Yeah, but these
And
people
they're
in the
not
dis-
like
in the
Mad
domestic-
Max right now.
But the people in the domestic disputes might have guns because we're in America.
Well, that's fine, but like, why does it work in the UK? But
Because they don't have
here?
guns.
Because we got rid of it before it became part of like a national identity and was written into the Constitution as like literally a part of the amount of people who argue for the Second Amendment as literally like their entire personality is ridiculous in America.
Wait,
Like,
hold
That
on.
being said, it
Back
does
up for
exist, so
one
we have to like
second.
realize it's there.
Right.
Wait,
Can we just
hold on.
back up for 1 second, please, for the love of God, okay? So it sounds like arguing with for this whole social workers things versus cops when we should just have police that are trained to de-escalate. Like, it sounds like you guys are all arguing for the same thing, essentially in a circle, trying to put different names on it.
I think that's probably
I
too
want them
much,
to
though. I
be
don't think you can
cops,
expect
though.
that of police officers.
So-
Sorry,
Well, I
Josh,
think
go.
we should have less police officers, and we should increase the budget for training, and then decrease the budget in other areas. That way, we can get the more intensive training.
Hold on,
And
wait,
You
get
need
more
specialization.
A lot of votes for that
You-
one, bro.
You
Wait,
you
hold
need
on.
specialization.
Specialization is a good thing. We can't have cops doing all jobs. Social workers
That's what I
already
mean.
get sent out to do. Right. Also, I just want to point out that delivery drivers do die more often than police officers per capita. I don't know what I said, like 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, or something. That
said
was,
8.
I said 8. Okay, yeah, that was. I hope that I was hyperbolizing. It's about 1.6 times, 1.7 times as often for delivery drivers.
Okay. I was
so
gonna say.
so here's the thing: within the driver/sales workers and truck drivers group, there were a total 966 fatal injuries in 2018, but just 5% of these were driver/sales workers, which includes restaurant delivery drivers, not just pizza. Vast majority are heavy truck drivers. Of these 966 deaths, 78% were transportation related, which makes sense for truck drivers. Only 2% were homicides, 20 deaths, including heavy truck drivers. By contrast, of the 108 police officers killed in 2018, 49 were homicides.
Oh, could you link?
Wow, so that was just completely the fuck wrong.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
Well, can you
sounds
link
like
that?
to me
Stat BTFO.
that America is fucked. And I think we just leave you guys to it. You guys can do whatever you want with your guns. And the rest of the world should just completely ignore America.
Oh
Thank
god,
you
wouldn't
for-
it be nice? But you literally can't because they export
No, I think
so
we
much
should.
of their fucking ideology. Like even
No,
to
let's just ignore
Australia.
Thank you so much.
It's the
Thank you
dream.
so much for creating a normalized sentiment of just if these guys are over here, let them kill each other, Lord of the Flies style.
I like
Totally.
whatever. Like, yeah, if you're gonna be crazy
We're gonna
kids
have
with
a lot-
guns on a weird island, like go for it. Like that's
I
It's
don't
too
know.
hard because they control
think-
most of our Western media,
No,
right?
No,
There's
no. We ban everything from America. Everywhere else in the world. So, like, sorry, I can't come on your panels anymore because actually, this doesn't exist. No communication. Just cut them off.
No cheeseburger.
I don't know. The
How are you guys going to
internet
enforce that? You don't have any guns.
Only exists.
Okay.
True.
You said,
We
wait,
don't-
Fawn,
it
hold on,
doesn't mean-
Fawn,
You can't.
Fawn.
You can't
You
reach.
said-
We've got cheese though,
I know-
guys. We've got
I know,
cheese.
You can't
Fawn.
reach me with your
Fawn
guns.
is a
I'm on an
huge
island.
fan. You're a huge fan of Burger King, so you're fucked.
No, I'm not that big. I do.
All right, but we
Wait,
get to
what?
keep all the American media, so you guys are screwed.
Wait, is this even true?
Yeah.
That's so true. I would have nothing to watch. Like Australian TV is alright, but
Oh
like
no, Australian TV is terrible. No, but you can
Yeah,
you can
okay.
have British
Hold up.
TV. Okay, like there's some stuff out of British. You know, like other. I don't know. Get into anime. Like there's options.
This sounds terrible. What the hell are you talking about?
No, it doesn't matter for
exactly.
you.
I don't
I don't
like
care about
anime.
you. You're American. I don't
I'm
care
drinking
about
my
you.
You're
Monster.
responsible.
Monster.
You are
So-
responsible
so-
for deteriorating society. What you have
I'm
done is
good.
destroyed the world.
Good.
So I'm not disputing that there is this, kind of cultural domination that America has, right? And I would say, like I myself have even seen like the kind of Eurocentric standards that we've had for like as far as beauty goes, right? So yeah, I definitely see like what you guys are saying, and I think that is though something that has to come like internally, right? I don't know that America can do anything to stop that, right? But like other countries could do what they wanted as far as encouraging their own media to be consumed, right? So
I've got a book for
Yeah.
you, my friend. This right here is
oh
called
my God, he's telling us
Imperialism.
to read.
Yes, Imperialism, the
God.
highest stage of capitalism by
Also
Vladimir
ban
Lenin.
reading.
No,
Go-
keep reading.
Just go read theory, bro.
I don't
bro,
read.
go
I
read
don't.
theory.
You don't need
The
to
only
read
theory
theories.
I read is keeping up with the Kim Kardashians, and that's not even reading, okay? That's fucking watching something. You
can
can learn
someone make a
everything you
YouTube
need to
video?
know.
About the book, so I don't have to read it.
You guys are, like,
Listen, if
smart
you want
nuts.
leftist theory like that, just go on Twitter, okay? Have a look
No.
around, find some unhinged 50 tweet thread about how
Yo, do you
the
have a
term lame is
Discord server I
ableist.
can use to find
and
all this
read that.
information out? Yeah.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hop on Reddit and you're gonna go
No.
r/Marxism Leninism,
R//
then
Hassan
what you're gonna
Piker, yeah.
and what you're gonna want to do is you're going to want to basically go to your nearest arms dealer, buy a Glock, read for a while, and then Roblox yourself.
Wait. No, wait. I think
It's
I'm
down,
still
bro.
right.
What are you talking about?
Look, listen, Vosh is desperate.
Vosh is
to
still on the
keep
numbers,
up
bro.
Stardust, okay? He's got to be right, okay? He's got
We're
to be right.
talking
Let
about
him- let him
Lenin
bring
right
back
now.
on
Must find
track.
Wait, hold on, wait,
I
wait, hold
just said we
Must
should
find.
like completely
Wait, okay,
who's getting
ignore the
BTO?
UN.
I didn't realize we're being
And
obstinate
Vaush is
about
like-
the idea of learning more about this subject. So there are a good number of cops that die per year to traffic incidents themselves. I mean, right? Like for instance, the biggest killer of cops right now is COVID. But if you take a look at specifically pizza delivery drivers, which is significant, you want to isolate that group. Most delivery drivers never make contact with the person in the house. If you're dropping off Amazon shit or whatever, then you're not. You just leave it at the porch. But pizza delivery drivers make eye contact. And in that case, from what I can tell, pizza delivery. Let's see. Okay, if we take felonious cop deaths, which means they're being killed by a crime, we take.
So what I linked to you has nothing about pizza delivery drivers on it. I don't know where you're getting that.
They're the one. Well, I'm just wondering if cops should be escorting them, right? So
What
there's
Are
a-
pizza
Right,
delivery
but okay,
people
you're
not
missing.
like-
Seems like
You're
a lot
missing
of
the
commitment
point.
to
You're missing
being
the point.
right here.
Drivers
keep it real
slash
with you,
sales
boss.
workers include. Okay, so this is majority of the people who
Wait, what is the
have these
point?
deaths are heavy truck drivers, right? Of these 966 deaths, 78% were transportation related.
Wait,
That's what we're
not-
talking about,
Is
right?
pizza
That
by you
wasn't-
not no contact right now? Because it's no
Yeah,
contact.
yeah,
Wait,
we're-
wait. Hold on. Wait.
Yeah.
Either I'm missing the point, or we're all missing the point.
No,
The
we're
point
trying to
that I was
control for more
making-
variables here.
The point that
That's what we're doing.
wait, hold on. I'm not sure if any of you understand the point that was made. The point that I was trying to make is that there are many social functions which are dangerous, and that you wouldn't argue that cops should escort like all of them, right?
Well,
Sure.
not if they're transportation related. A lot of people die in car accidents, right? Maybe we should just, not drive cars. I don't know.
Okay, but when you take away the transportation related deaths and only look at murders or robberies, pizza delivery drivers are still
2%.
victimized at a very high. Didn't you
two-
say even 1% was too high earlier?
Well, right. If we're talking about when somebody calls the police, right, and they are under threat of violence, then yes, if that's 1% of the calls, then we should send the police to them. That's a preventable thing.
Do we need to get
the
into
1%?
utilitarianism?
Wait, so
Oh, please,
are
no,
we just
no
ignoring the fact that
utilitarianism.
pizza delivery drivers can conceal carry if they want to protect themselves?
They
Are we
don't
just
bring
gonna
their
ignore-
guns with them. Wait, that's not the same as having a cop. Every citizen can concealed carry if they want to in most circumstances.
Yeah, but we're talking
was
about
gonna say-
cops having
cars
guns.
might not let you have company cars might not let you have guns with them. Also,
Okay.
no pizza delivery service would allow their drivers to have a visible holster on them.
I don't know why you're
well,
caught on
is
the
that
pizza
true?
delivery.
No,
though.
I have
Because-
to say this.
Because
Okay,
the
Vaush
logical
said-
route is the best kind.
Wait,
Vaush
what
said-
point do you think I was trying to make earlier?
with the
Vaush
pizza
said
the
there
pizza
was
delivery
eye contact.
drivers.
There was. I guess what we thought we were trying
do
to
you think
say.
I was trying to make?
I guess we thought you were trying to say something to the effect of, if the police or pizza drivers
I
are
was just
killed at a
pointing-
higher rate. Like, I think she was just trying to point out the
I was
flaw. with
pointing
the
out that
statistics.
was wrong. That was wrong. The stat that you're saying that pizza delivery drivers are murdered at a higher rate than cops are, or that they die or whatever at a higher rate than cops do, and that their job is more dangerous. I was pretty much saying that was wrong because
Their
the
job is
data,
more dangerous.
the data.
That is, that is a fact.
No,
Look, we can replace
no,
pizza delivery drivers with a
it's
different
not.
job, and his comment
Wait,
logically
it
follows
is.
still.
So, but we're not
Okay,
talking about how
so,
dangerous it is.
Again,
we're talking
right?
about,
We're talking about. We're not talking about right. Like the rate of homicides that pizza delivery drivers encounter, right? Because it's 2% of all transportation or drivers / sales workers, right? That's 2%. That's not even specifically pizza delivery people, right? I don't know where you're getting pizza delivery, but if it's 2% of drivers / sales workers that are homicides, right? That's like
Didn't you say
the
before
pizza
1%?
delivery, right? That's but again, this is not people calling for help, right?
Okay, so
You're
if
wrong,
we take
dude.
a look
Just accept
right
that you're
now,
wrong.
wait, no, I still don't think you understand the point. If we're talking about which responsibilities can be delegated to non-police entities, right? There's always going to be a risk, no matter what the job is, that the job you do might meet with violence. Whether you're being a pizza delivery driver, or you're checking up on people on parole, or you're checking up on traffic violations, there's always the possibility that what you do might meet with violence. So you made an argument that any chance of violence was sufficient to warrant sending a police officer. And my rebuttal to that was, if that was the case, police officers should be fulfilling basically every civic function in this country, because every job carries with it some potential risk of violence. Certainly pizza delivery drivers.
So, okay,
So what you're saying is everyone
pizza
should be armed. Literally everybody should be armed, no matter what they do. Teachers should be armed. Pizza drivers should be armed. Everybody who has any chance of coming into contact with violence should be armed.
Wait,
Okay,
yeah, so
so
then it comes.
here's the
I would
thing.
like
Here's
one.
the thing, right? Okay, so again, this is if you're looking at just deaths, we don't. I mean, I don't know that we would send police, just because of that, right? We look at like homicides, what's dangerous, right? Again, 2% of driver / sales workers are homicides. They die from homicides, right? The rest of that is like the vast majority of it is transportation
That's not a relevant
related deaths.
statistic when
It is
we're talking
it is
about
relevant, right?
homicide.
Because you're talking about
No, it's
homicides of pizza delivery drivers, right?
Yes.
They
And
are under
robberies,
that
which aren't included
category.
here, but that's pretty common.
They
as
are
well.
under that
Wait.
category.
Can we just talk about the
Yeah, but we're
utility
not
that comes from sending fucking pizza or police officers with pizza delivery drivers? How
What-
expensive
Dude, I'm gonna
that would
call
be?
the pizza delivery guy
wait,
next
wait,
time this is
wait,
domestic.
you're
Bullshit that
right.
would be.
I
Yes, of
completely
course
agree.
I'm right. I know
Sending
I'm right.
police officers to assist delivery drivers or to be the delivery driver would be a tremendous waste of money.
Yes.
So
It is
maybe there
incredibly
are other
inefficient,
things
which is
we
why I
send
don't
police.
know why we're getting hung up on this fucking point. It's such
So
a bad
maybe
point.
I agree. So maybe there are other things that cops get sent to which have very proportionally low risks of
Okay.
violence that we could delegate to social
So
workers.
can you
We're
give an
talking
example of
about-
something
we're
where, like-
talking
We're
about
talking about
people
explicit
calling
violence.
Yeah, we're talking about explicitly violent situations. I'm not talking about
Nobody
pizza
has
delivery.
argued against that.
Then
But
what are we talking about?
Wait,
Pizza
so you-
delivery
wait,
drivers
wait,
aren't calling for
you-
the police.
What
Wait,
about
wait, you guys are talking past
explicitly?
each other.
What about non-explicitly violent situations? Like, for example, when the cops get called because a homeless person is being rowdy, or because of a mental health checkup, or because somebody wants somebody to supervise as they move stuff out of another person's house.
All right, but what
or
kind
because
of
they're
mental health
concerned about
checkup?
What about wait? What about when people have noise complaints on neighbors? Are these all things we need to send military gear equipped cops over
Are
to
they coming
deal
with
with?
M16s?
I mean, you can make an argument for it because the possibility in America is that everyone could be armed, right? Like that's the problem you have
yes,
here.
Then every civic function should be done by cops. We should just have cop jobs, and everyone all the time is just wearing Kevlar and has a gun on them, right?
See,
Well,
this
I
is the
mean,
thing
that's
that I
your
think
logical conclusion, but like,
No,
what's
wait,
the
my
problem?
Wait, is everybody who owns a
the-
Glock
for the-
military
do.
geared?
For the homeless people, right? I don't know how often you've like interacted, but that
I grew up in
can
LA.
turn
You
into-
don't need to patronize.
Okay. All right. I'm not trying to patronize you. I'm just for anybody, really.
How often do you think cops
can
die to
be-
homeless people?
I'm not talking about them dying, right? But it
I
can
mean, homeless
be
people
a
probably
violent.
die to cops more
If
than
you
the
let
other
me
way around.
finish, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Wait, if there's a disturbance with
so-
a homeless person, it's not just the police officer that's in danger. It could be the
Oh
person
my
who's in
God, guys,
disturbance.
come on.
The vast majority
I'm
of
saying-
situations like that are not like a homeless person running around with a knife. It's usually
No,
just some
of course not. I'm not
It's
saying
loitering.
that. I didn't even get to finish what I was saying before you guys, like 3 people jumped in. Okay, so what I'm saying, right, in a lot of these situations, there's still the risk for it to turn violent, maybe not against the police officer, but against whoever is calling, right?
but
That's
that
why
risk
we
exists
send,
all the time.
yes, but
Always.
pizza delivery drivers, if they call the police, then the police will probably show up to help them too, right?
By then it's too late. They already
Exactly.
put it
That's
on
why we
fucking
can't send a
doorstep.
social worker for everything.
No, that's my point. Wait, okay, hold on. Why shouldn't we just have police officers fulfill every civic function? Because we acknowledge that any time the state needs to send anyone anywhere, it does involve violence. Maybe they should go with EMTs every time. Maybe when the meter maids that take coins out of the parking things, maybe cops should be sent there. That is a potentially dangerous job. You never know. Maybe anytime food health inspectors show up to restaurants, they should be cops too, because that is also something that could potentially lead to violence. Every job carries a risk, but we have to decide maybe, and by the way, Americans are the ones with this problem. Other countries have this figured out better. Maybe we don't need to send cops to everything. Cops are overworked. They're not trained for the huge range of jobs they're asked to perform. We're so paranoid in this country.
Can we get some
don't
solid
consider the possibility.
examples? Like,
I
what kind
don't-
of mental health disturbance would you just want to send a social worker to?
Someone's gonna kill themselves. We
Yeah,
need to
someone's
send
gonna jump
just
off a
social
bridge.
worker.
Now, is the
Yeah.
person who's going to
It's
kill
a-
themselves armed, or is
No.
it just like someone's going to
Because
jump
they're
off of
jumping
a
off a
bridge?
bridge.
If there's ever an alert that the person in trouble is armed, then they would send a cop.
Yeah.
But oftentimes mental health checks are literally like a call is received. Hey, I think my friend's like feeling depressed. Can you check in on them?
So we
But
have
then you
things
wouldn't
like
have
this.
the
They're
accurate
called
information
welfare
to know they're
checks,
not
right?
armed.
You can call people and get a welfare check on them, right?
Who does it?
They don't kick down your
sometimes
door
it's
when you
a-
get a welfare check.
Yeah,
No,
it's
we
just
should-
like a
wait,
social
wait.
worker
Yeah,
or
so-
yeah.
Wait,
You
so we
call-
should be
that cops
prescribing
gets
that we should be prescribing that it should be social workers because cops are armed and
For
this
elderly
tends to lead
people,
to
it's social
escalate.
workers.
Good, but see, a lot of the time, people who have depression or things of that nature, or like there was that case of the guy who was going to kill themselves and the cops straight up shot him. Okay, so there's cases where cops get sent to deal with mental health checks, and that leads to just more and more escalation and eventually antagonism of the person who's going to do something potentially harmful. to
Imagine
themselves
having a
or
mental
others.
health crisis and a fucking cop shows up. Holy shit, I'm mentally well, and if a fucking cop knocks at my door like, "This place, you okay there?" Like, holy shit. Yeah, but they're probably not the best people to send. They're like the opposite of mental health trained. They're like,
Do they
they're-
do that
yeah.
in America?
Yes,
They do.
welfare checks.
Okay, they
send
do that
cops,
here
and they
too. I
do
was
kick
just
down
checking.
doors, and they will pull
Not
guns on you.
necessarily.
No,
but-
they. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Are you conflating
Yes.
like a
Not
swatting
necessarily.
with like a mental health check?
No, in mental health checks, at least where I grew up, and in basically every experience I've ever heard, they send cops, and those cops treat every single mental like welfare check like they're busting in a fucking booby-trapped.
All right,
like
every
lamb
single
jungle.
one.
Not every
Wait,
single
every
one, but
single
a
cop
lot
or
of
every single welfare check.
You just said like
Wait, okay, the broader point is that cops are not equipped to deal with these kind of things because they're not trained in de-escalation. They're trained to be like militarized civilian commandos coming out here and taking people down. They're trained to deal with criminals. They have the mentality to be trained to deal
I
with
think
criminals.
part of the reason
not
this is-
mentally unwell people.
I think part
That's
of the reason it
broader
sounds
point.
so unhinged to send a police officer anywhere is because like kind of people like you think that cops are just military geared out fucking I don't know, black ops agents who kick down doors and shoot fucking suicidal people.
Do you think? Wait, do
I mean,
you
we
think
have
that
stats
cops?
of their
Wait,
behavior.
do
People
you
like
think? Wait, no. I am
you?
talking. I am talking right now. Okay. Do not
Oh,
put words in
okay.
my mouth.
So when it's
Mr.
when
Quote
it's
Turner.
you, when it's you,
okay.
it's me. It's
Yes.
it's different. 3 people
My-
can interrupt me when I'm
maximizing-
talking.
I'm maximizing
'cause you're a
my
woman.
utility right now.
Of
Okay.
course
Yeah.
it is.
It
So-
is.
The thing is again, like Vaush said, the numbers show that cops are way more likely to do this than social workers. Like it's not even comparable. The second thing is yes, they're absolutely militarized, ready to go. They carry guns, pepper spray, like mace, like billy clubs with them. They're basically ready to take people down. Like they are driving around in armored vehicles a lot of the time. There's so many fucking.
So
cops
should we
out
replace
there.
it with Priuses?
Yes,
should
because it would be better for the
social work
environment.
for low
I am
risk-
not
I'd like to see
disagreeing
cops-
that we can
And Priuses.
I'm not disagreeing that we can certainly train people better, right? Certainly. But this comparison with pizza delivery drivers for whatever reason just doesn't seem very apt to me.
The point that I'm making is that some jobs carry risk, but that doesn't mean we always send cops to do it. Do you think that like we've arranged the perfect balance right now? Like right now, everything cops do, it's perfect for them to do it. And
No, I
everything
mean,
cops
no.
don't do, it's perfect for them to
I
not
think
do it.
I think that definitely there are things that we can work on, right? Like there certainly like paperwork, right? But like but a lot of this, right? What we're talking about, you're talking about these on the field things. I think we still need cops for.
I think
Nobody here has said we should abolish all cops. We're just saying
I'm
that
gonna
there
say
are
that.
No,
roles.
I never said that you said that.
I mean,
Wait, then why are you arguing against the consistent position that I have held?
that is like a.
Which is that
The
there are
consistent
roles that we
position-
fill right now that we could have filled by social workers.
I just think there needs to be more of a balance. America's in a really shitty spot because everybody could potentially be armed, which is why like cops go into situations heavily armed, which is very problematic. But at the end of the day, we also have to talk about what kind of people go into becoming cops and why they do it, right? Like the role has to be entirely changed because people go into this job for whatever sort of power trip it creates.
What?
A lot of the
You
time.
think that people only become cops because they want to go for a power trip?
A lot
No,
of them do,
I
yeah.
think some people maybe go in wanting to make the world a safer and a more just place, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who go into it to inflict power on others.
Or it's just like a stable job with some good pay. I don't know.
True,
I think
because
something
why?
just
care
as a
about
quick,
their
as a quick,
Capitalism has allowed for very little people to have any sort of social mobility, and becoming a cop or joining the military or is one of those things where you can get a stable income where you can actually survive. So yes, there is lots of reasons, but you can't ignore the power dynamics at play here.
I think it's a quick, just a quick reality check. So a welfare check, the reason why you call somebody to do a welfare check is because you think somebody might be in trouble. Somebody, it could be an elderly person, maybe has fallen down or something, and you don't have the ability to get to the residence. The reason why you do a welfare check is because a cop can go to the residence, they're allowed to knock, and then if they have reason to believe that something bad has happened, they can break in to get into the house to make sure that the person is okay. A cop doing a welfare check isn't a cop walking up to the door and screaming like, "This is the fucking police, open the fuck up!" That's not what a welfare check is, and that's not how police conduct themselves during a welfare check. Just a quick heads up for that.
Thank you.
Wait, is that really
I forgot
When did
to.
Destiny jump in here? What the hell?
I didn't realize
Oh,
that
really
that
good.
was
Let's really get
so
this
long
fucking
ago.
scene.
Somebody
Let's
sounded
get this
like
fucking
Destiny.
show on the road.
I was like,
Let's fucking
who's
go.
It is Destiny.
It's
That
not a
camera
British
on.
No,
accent.
well, I was confused.
Let's fucking
No,
go.
he's
Come on.
right.
Let's get at it.
Like,
I gave you the
wanna
link
defer
to the
like,
video
if we
chat.
want to
Destiny,
defer
if you want it.
to broader research on this, there are plenty of criticisms of the way that police are used in this country, the ubiquity with which they're used, the ways in which they're trained, and the fact that we overload them with basically every civic function that we send people out to do that we can get away with. So the argument that no, not literally every welfare check is them storming down the door, but yes, there have been plenty of arguments made, even from people in the police departments, that a heavier focus on de-escalation could be achieved with non-police officers, because police officers' first priority, in accordance with their training, is always going to be, well, not very de-escalatory.
So a cop's goal is always to de-escalate, but I mean, if a cop is called to an area, then obviously that might not be what's happening. If you've called a police officer, you're already in an exceptional circumstance, of course. The reason why cops are sent out to places is because of liability. And this is why even with social welfare checks, or when a social worker is called, oftentimes you want a police officer there for liability reasons. If you're getting to an area where something has escalated so much that you feel like you need to call external parties to help with some sort of mental health crisis, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to enter an area where somebody needs the authority to apply force, which is by the state, that's going to be there in order to have that person on hand to do it. This is why even if we do these things where social workers show up to place or whatever, if you're calling like somebody to do this, you're probably going to have to send a cop along anyway.
Yeah, but aren't
no,
we at a
I
point now
strongly
where
disagree.
people are like, some
The-
people are scared of the cops, and there needs to be a way to call somebody that's not a cop to deal with your situation too?
Yeah, but so like here's the problem, okay? Is that if you're a social worker and you were, and I super recommend if anybody ever wants to drag an actual social worker onto this to talk about it, when you're a social worker and you're calling this, people seem to think that like social workers are called in because, oh, you know, like Johnny's feeling really depressed and maybe he's a little suicidal and we want to call a social worker over to the house to chat with him. This isn't like what social workers are typically called to homes for. They're usually called to homes in the event of like a mental health crisis. So it might be somebody's like literally locked in a bathroom with a knife saying they're going to kill themselves. It might be somebody that's taken their child out and they could be at risk. It could be somebody locked up with a gun. Like these are the types of things you call a mental health like professional for. Even inside institutions, there will be people that will make calls to police officers when they're dealing with certain types of patients. These situations are they're really difficult, and oftentimes you need somebody that's ready to assume the violent liability there in order to handle the situation, which is why cops are involved in these sorts of things so often. I don't really see a way around that, unfortunately.
So you think that every role the cops fill right now is the one which needs to be filled by cops? And
If it's
all
not
the
filled-
roles which are not filled by cops, it's acceptable for the risks to be taken by a person who isn't capable of exercising that violence.
Well, it depends on what roles you're talking about. If we're going back to the pizza driver thing, I don't think calling a cop is going to help you avoid like a drunk driving accident or something. Like if we're talking about these types of things, then no. Also, individuals can carry firearms with them if they want. They can call the cops if they want. There's other things there. But secondly, the problem is that when people talk about like, oh well, we need to do these things, or we need to not have cops go here. We need to have some other person. When you start to ask questions about, well, what other kind of person is, you're just going to be building a different type of cop. So I'll say, okay, well, so in a mental health crisis, you don't want cops? You'll be like, well, no, of course. I was like, okay, so who should go? A social worker. Okay, well, the social worker needs to have training to subdue somebody. You agree with that, right? Well, yeah, it'd be a social worker with that training. Okay, we also probably need to vest some authority in them to like apply force, right? Well, yeah, of course. They probably need a weapon, right? Yeah, at least like a taser or something. Okay, you're basically just building a cop again, right? It's easier
And
to
that's
take a
every
cop
role
and
that a cop fills
Wait,
right
yeah,
now.
wait. But don't you think that there are situations which we send cops to do things like they monitor fucking public high schools and shit like that, where we could have someone who's way more well equipped to do this take over this job, because this is the position that I
Wait,
think
have
me
you
and
ever
Voss
gone
have
to a
tried
high
hold
school
here.
with metal detectors?
Have I ever gone to a high school with metal detectors? Do you think people bring guns to every high school or something?
wait, hold on. So a
Why
lot of
do you
high
think
schools have
there's
metal
metal
detectors now, right?
detectors?
Have you been to a school where like violent fights break out every day? Like that's like the type of place where
Hold
we're
on,
talking
wait,
about,
okay,
right?
wait, hold on.
Yeah,
We
and
need to
usually
do- wait,
teachers
wait,
get in the
wait.
middle of those fights and break them up. Like,
We need
no
to be-
cops
No, they
needed.
don't. No,
yeah,
no.
absolutely.
Not
they
that type,
You
not
think
that
this is a
type.
cop?
This
No.
is wait, hold on. This is
Absolutely.
complete
What are you
anecdote
talking
jerking.
about?
Okay, hold on. This isn't some radical lefty concern. Police are dramatically overworked in this country because they do get sent out for so much, and this is something that is different in other countries. It's a problem that we have in particular. Now, obviously, America has a higher rate of gun ownership, but the percentage of like cop time that's spent on violent calls or like in direct immediate threats of violence is quite a small portion of what they do altogether. Oftentimes they show up to take notes after a potential property crime. They respond to non-criminal calls. There are traffic issues. Mental welfare checks are not all somebody's at such a point that they're probably going to kill themselves. You can just call the cops and say, hey, I'm worried about my friend, and with no other information, and they'll send police officers. The idea that
Well, but why are you
all of
calling the
these
cops?
roles need to be because Americans like calling cops.
Okay, but that's American.
because
If you're
who-
calling
who
a
else-
police officer and say you're worried about your friend, what is it? I don't know. My friend just lost his holographic Charizard. Can you go check up on him?
So
Like, what are you saying when you call the police?
Call the police, the information you give them will dictate the response they decide to send. If you tell them that there's a hostage situation, they send a SWAT team. If you tell them something less important than that, they send a police officer. And maybe, in a better world, if you told them something that seems not immediately threatening, they could send somebody who's not even a police officer, somebody whose job deals more with interpersonal interactions and de-escalation than what cops do. The ideal cop would be able to do all of these roles, but we know they can't. We know for a fact they can't. There are severe criticisms of the way that our police spend their time in this country.
Yeah, this is why we we're talking about specialization earlier, okay? This is why it's important to, send people who are more equipped to handle these things out. I don't know why we couldn't, why we beat around the bush with that all so
Can
much.
I share an anecdote?
Please.
Yeah.
Sure.
So once, my friend did something not so good at my house, and called the ambulance. Actually, she called the ambulance on herself. Because, yeah, she was like, I think I'm a danger to myself, so should probably go get some help. And then, even though she called the ambulance and told them what happened, a paramedic showed up, and the police also showed up because there was someone doing something harmful to themselves. And I think that kind of made sense because they didn't know in what kind of headspace she necessarily was, or if what kind of weapons she might have had. Like, I do think that it kind of made sense for the police to show up, but also this is New Zealand, so like the cops didn't come in with guns or anything, and they just had a very calm conversation with us to figure out what had happened, and then the paramedic took us to the hospital. And I feel like that kind of made sense to me. That situation didn't seem bad.
I don't know the specifics of New Zealand police treatment, but I imagine they don't have the same issues that we do. It's also possible, I mean, you could make the argument for sending an EMT and an ambulance after pretty much every police call, right? Like, you never know if there's going to be a problem. Obviously, we all have to learn when to draw the line on expenditures of police or state resources. And I'm only saying that, and again, this isn't some radical lefty opinion. This has been a criticism for decades. We do overtax police by having them fill a ton of roles. Seriously, if we could just get response to non-criminal calls, like not even an implicit threat, done mostly by social workers, we could cut down on the amount of police time responding to calls by nearly a third. And the benefits of that would be enormous with regards to city budgets, with the actual well-being of these cops, because it would probably mean that they're a little bit less strained. I think that you can like make really good arguments for some types of work being delegated, and we can try this on a city-by-city basis. Maybe we don't need cops standing guard at these high schools. Maybe having social workers there would work better. I know that I don't know what the data is on like having cop guards at high schools, like leading to increased rates of graduation or lower violence are, but I do know that recently there was that dad project. You had like 24 kids who were arrested for scuffling in the school. So a bunch of dads got together, and they now they're there, and now kids aren't getting arrested because the dads are there to just sort of, I don't know, dad shame people, stuff like that, you know? Like, we have to get rid of the idea that everything is dangerous, so everything has to be done by a cop, and like, oh, cops aren't great at everything and they're actually quite bad in America at de-escalation. Well, that's just a risk we have to take. We need to be more exploratory than that, city by city.
Do you think though in most situations it should be both? Like, there should be this specialization where there are teams of people where somebody is trained, you know, in firearms, and then there is a social worker involved?
Yeah, but we can come up with different combinations and different practical applications in all types of settings, which I think would be important. But there's lots of practical applications where we don't need to send police at all. That's the important thing. Like,
I'm having a hard time.
I'm
having a hard time understanding what these like mental health crises are that are so essential. You need to call a third party that you wouldn't want a police officer there for liability reasons. I'm just curious. I'm genuinely asking. Is there like an example, or
are you asking because you don't know? Have you ever had a welfare check?
I don't know if this is supposed to make the argument stronger. What I'm asking is if you've escalated something to the point where you have to make a phone call, you're saying, hello, there is a situation that is so out of control where I'm at right now, I need to bring in another person to deal with it. But it's fine, I don't need a cop. I'm just curious, what are those types of situations? That's what I'm asking.
So, welfare checks oftentimes are done literally just because you're concerned about a person. I know that, and I could dig this up, and I don't know if there's specific data on this, but the idea that every welfare check is being done because an American has waited for the last resort and only now are they willing. A lot of people panic call 911 because that's the only option we have when it comes to asking the state for any kind of interference. Unless you have a friend in the neighborhood of whatever friend you're concerned about, the state has nothing else for you. There's nothing else you can send. There's no other number you can call. It's the cops. So also, in many cases, we don't even have a normalization of the channels that people could go through to indicate they want someone other than a cop. But I'll say this, I have called welfare checks on somebody because I was worried about them, and I did have to call the cops. But I wouldn't have if there had been an alternative. The cop was undesirable, but preferable to the absence of information entirely. And thankfully, nothing happened. She was fine. The cop didn't do anything bad.
So if we're making a welfare check on somebody, we're implicitly or explicitly saying there's a chance that you're going to go to a house, and the house you're going to has a dead person inside. You might even need to break into it. Like, do we just send like a social worker there and then they either break in, or when the social worker gets there, if nobody answers there, do they call the cops?
I think that is an extraordinarily small fraction of the total range of. Again, this would be like every time.
Okay, you keep trying to say like, wait, hold on. You keep trying to say like.
I'm sorry. Do you have numbers on how often that is the case?
Okay, it's not about how often. It's about the possibility of it
There's
being the
always
case.
a possibility that any state action, anytime you send anyone to fulfill any role at any house, something horrible could happen. Now, if you would ask the majority of people calling for a welfare check, do you want a cop or a social worker sent to the house of that person? I would be willing to bet a majority would ask for a social worker, not all, but I do think that's a decision they should at least be able to make.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if that's even a situation, because there would have to be further explanation given there. When you're making a call for a welfare check, what you're telling the operator on the other end is there is a chance that you're going to a residence that you might need to break into, and there's a chance that there might be a crime scene because there might be a body. That is the entire point of a welfare check. A welfare check means that there is somebody that you are concerned about in a house and you cannot get a hold of them in any way. So they're not responding to any sort of phone call, cell phone, whatever, and you don't have another friend that you can go check up on them. So when you call an operator, you're saying they could be dead, there might be a crime scene, you might need to break in to check on that person. That's the point of a welfare check.
Right, so when we generally have welfare checks, do you think that it's an initial first move or a good idea to just send some cops there willing to barge down and break down the door? Do you think that that's like the best outcome when most often we don't need these cops to come out here and, you know, handle these situations when we could have a social worker go knock, check on the door, make sure the person's alive and then leave, especially when cops are more threatening. They are more intimidating, and it definitely is going to make someone having a mental health crisis more on edge and more feel more antagonized or feel more problematic.
Sure, so like that's a potential thing. But so here's the question then, right? Since cops are hooked up to EMTs and can get all these people on the line very quick, they usually have training when breaking a train. Let's say that you think there might be somebody that's suicidal. You do a welfare check, okay? But you don't think they're like a threat to anybody. You're just like a little bit worried. Let's say that a social worker shows up to the house. They knock 3 times. They don't get an answer. At this point, there's 2 paths. One, are these social workers also trained to like break and enter doors or whatever? Are they ready to assume that liability? If yes, then they can, okay? If no, then now they have to call the police to do a break and entry. Let's say that in the time you call the social worker and they're there, the person's like on the floor, like choking on their own fucking tongue because they're trying to OD on some drug or whatever. I guess like are you worried about the fact that now you're just causing more and more time between like a breaking and entering, which you would need to do to check in on some people that might be in the process of killing themselves? Like, is there some number of like, well, it'll happen to 1% case?
Wait, I'm going to answer this.
First of all, we're talking again about fringe cases. Second of all, I'm pretty sure you could train social workers in that way and give them legal permission in welfare checks to engage in.
Our social workers
I want to get in here. I want to get in here, okay? I need to get involved with this. I have a fucking question.
Then I'd like to finish my response if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
The biggest rebuttal to this is that the first people you send for a welfare check aren't the cops, it's your friends and family if they're nearby. If we really thought of welfare checks as something like, okay, they could encounter a dead body, you know, there could be a threat, then people would always first call the police. But if they have friends and family in the area, those are always the first people that you call when you want to check up on somebody's well-being. Clearly, in practice, welfare checks aren't like, who are you sending to collect the body? We're talking about overwhelmingly a situation where at least you just check in on the house and see if anyone's there, if anyone's in need of assistance, and at worst usually involve a situation that I legitimately think a social worker would be better trained for than a cop. Cops in America, I just would not trust dealing with somebody in a mental health crisis, but a social worker could be trusted because their interpersonal training hasn't been corrupted by the kind of machismo-laden like police, like us versus them training that is a very often criticized.
Wait. No. I need to get in here before you guys move on, okay? Wait. Not just that, but wouldn't it be like a better option to send social workers in initially alone to check on this premises,
No,
and
we
then they
just
can
went
have
over
police
this.
like behind
We just
them?
went
because
over
if the
this.
Wait,
person's
no.
choking on the floor,
We
you're
just went
wasting
over
time.
this.
Wait, no.
You're wasting time. You are.
Yeah, so we could literally have police like be down the
Oh my
street, or they could
God.
wait in the car and come with the social worker, and then the social worker can just go.
I'm sorry, dude. No.
We're missing
but at
the
that point, now
entire
we're
point,
talking
which is who
about-
are you calling?
Wait, aren't we
Who are
talking
you
about like
calling
stretching?
if a vampire's trying to suck your dick?
Wait, hold on.
We're missing the entire
Ghostbusters.
point.
Aren't we
No, we're
talking
not
about
starting with
stretching
this
the
again.
police too thin? So now we're sending even more fucking people to go handle something
Did I
that a
get it
cop.
right?
You know what?
Yeah.
Yes, because I don't want police going in situations where someone might
Okay,
kill
but the way you
themselves
guys are
because people are
describing social workers,
terrified
it's
of the
just like a
police.
cop that you like better that doesn't have a gun.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
they
that
don't even have to go with.
Also, this
It's-
idea
yeah,
that like
no,
every
that's
cop
not the
is
case.
just
That's
showing up.
absolutely not the case.
It is. It's a
That's-
state worker that has like all the vested authority,
People-
whatever.
wait, hold-
is
wait,
gonna
hold
call
on,
the
wait,
cops
Every
on
time we
anyway.
find an
Hold
issue
on.
with a social
Wait,
worker, you
hold
just
on,
go, well, let's
wait,
just give him
stop.
clearance.
Wait, hold on. That's an incredibly stupid take. The idea that
Hold on,
because
wait, no,
cops
the
and
incredibly
social
stupid
wo-
take is that
Wait,
every
wait,
cop
hold
is going
on,
to show
let
up
me
at the door.
finish.
It's going to be some
Destiny,
macho guy trying to.
Yeah, they're
mow
just
you down
chugging
at
a
the door.
Monster
That's
Energy
not
drink
the
and
case.
killing black people.
Yes,
That's
it's
not
a-
what
hold
cops
on,
do,
wait. The idea that people think of cops the same way they would think of a social worker because they're both agents of the state is laughably dumb. People don't look at a cop and think, oh, that person works for a government. They think, that's a cop.
I'm not talking about
The
optics. I'm
uniform,
talking about what you're
the
describing.
badge,
Okay,
the gun.
I mean, if
So
we want to
mental
allude to the
health
polling data,
crises
the
are
majority of
very-
Americans have favorable views of cops anyway. Not every
We're
cop
not
is like the
talking about
videos
whether
that
or
you
not
see
they
on.
have favorable views of cops. We're talking about your statement that in mental health crises, people would view social workers about the same way as they viewed cops because they're both agents of the state.
Okay,
There's a
I'm just
huge
curious. I
difference
just want to
between
hear.
a
I just
person-
want to hear your response to this. Do you think a person experiencing a mental health crisis that sees a state licensed social worker coming views them in a favorable light? I'm really curious.
I
what you
think
think about this.
more favorably than a cop. I'd be willing to bet that's the case. Yes.
Okay, I don't.
They have a
necessarily
different
think that's-
uniform,
do you-
Destiny.
Wait,
It's totally
wait,
different.
no. I want to hear. Wait. I want to hear his rationalization for why someone would think of a
Yes,
cop
they'd be
more
viewed exactly
favorably.
the same, perfectly.
I want to
depending on
hear
your
his
experience,
rationalization.
because
cop
depending on-
knocking, you know,
because
got the
the-
badge and the guns and shit. Like, oh yeah, that's the same as some dude in a polo shirt who has like a little state ID on there. Yeah, no, I know.
So I mean, you
I
can
think
joke
there's a
about it
bunch
all you
of
want.
white
but-
No,
people
we're, no,
who
it's,
talk
it,
about
it is,
how
it is
people
a joke.
perceive
Yeah,
cops.
it's very funny.
Okay, we can go to real
Okay, but
examples,
the-
right?
actually-
No, hold on, wait. Okay, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so for all of you that none of you have experience with people that have mental health crises, I understand that. That's fine. It's
Are you
totally
talking about
normal.
me?
Okay, yes, all of you. Yes. Okay, so people that have had
Very
mental health
presumptuous of
crises.
you.
People that I can tell by the way that you talk. So people that have had serious mental health
That
crises.
cops and social
especially-
workers would be considered differently by people in
No, that you
crisis.
have no
Okay, let's-
idea how
let's let each other
absolutely
finish.
frightened somebody can be of a social worker that's representing the state when it comes to a mental health crisis.
I'm only saying they would probably be less so them than by a cop.
you-
That's
but
my
you
only
don't
position.
know
You
that
keep
because-
jumping to my argument being,
Okay.
I think social
let's
workers
keep
would
talking,
elicit no
just keep
fear.
talking,
I've never said
okay?
that.
So if you're
I
somebody,
can repeat it again if you need it.
I don't need you to repeat it. You've done it 3
So
times. If
just
you're
to make sure,
Sexual tension.
I'm
I
not
don't-
saying
like-
social workers can't be scary. Only that I think for mental health crises, cops would generally be considered scarier. So just keep that in mind. Give it a go.
It totally depends on the type of mental health crisis and the person you're talking about. So, for instance,
Sure.
if you're somebody that's already been like forcibly fucking not interned or condemned, committed, like in the state, like you're probably somebody that's going to see a cop as being less scary than a social worker. Like there are people that don't even seek help from mental health professionals because they are so fucking afraid of being committed to an institution. This is why Byron jumped out a fucking window and killed himself instead of trying to find more help, because he had one bad experience where he was committed to a mental institution and he never wanted to talk to anybody related
Cops
again.
can
It
commit
wouldn't
you.
surprise me. I know that they can, but I don't know if most people know that. It wouldn't surprise me
Wait,
if somebody
yes.
saw. You can laugh all you want, but I don't think that most people
Cops are the
see a
ones who
cop and
bring
they're-
you to the hospital for the detainment, the mental health.
Wait,
detainment.
okay,
They're
so
the ones who do that.
I understand that cops definitely have the ability to do that, but if you're
I
talking
feel like
about
you're
it from the
making a lot
perspective-
of stuff up to justify a position you wouldn't
How many
actually
times are
hold
you
if
gonna
I
cut
wasn't
me off
here.
because you realize your entire
Wait,
argument is
guys,
so
there's
fucking
something we're
stupid.
totally
yeah,
missing.
my argument's
You
falling
just keep
apart.
cutting me off, I
Right.
guess, if you want to, right? So I'm just saying that if a person is having a mental health crisis, the idea that they see a social worker show up and they're like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here on behalf of the state of California to check in on you," that can be an incredibly fucking terrifying experience as well.
Less
I don't
so
know if
than
I
a
would
cop
sit
on
here and try
average,
to
I'd be
figure
willing
out
to
juggling the door. Well, who are they going to be more scared of when there are like 50 more reasons to have cops? It seems like it's better to just either always send a cop or at least a cop plus a social worker. But I don't think you're ever sending just a social worker because people are scared
Wait,
of cops. It doesn't make
Destiny,
any
you
sense.
haven't considered the fact that maybe people are just as scared or more scared of social workers than police officers.
Isn't that what
I'm
I
just
said?
repeating Vosh's point now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I'm pretty sure that by any available data we have, most people fear or distrust cops more often they do social workers, because social workers are like the most innocuous and non-threatening agents of the state you're probably going to have a direct interaction with in most cases. Cops also have a... Wait, hold on. So, the idea that to a person undergoing a mental health crisis, a cop is a more welcome sight than a social worker is, to me, something I'd like to see borne out in data.
I don't know if we can find data on that, but I'm just going to tell you, okay, I understand
Can you find data on
I can't find you data on how many
cops?
people prefer a social, how many people in a mental health crisis prefer a social worker shop than a cop. Here's what I will say
What about
broadly
fear
speaking.
of either group?
Here's
Is
what
there
I say
data on how
broadly-
many people fear social
I can give you
workers?
all I can provide are my anecdotes, okay? Here's what I can say
okay.
broadly speaking, okay? Because at least I have some.
Have
because
you
apparently
had
nobody here has
cops
ever-
and social workers check up on you? in a
Yes, I've had
mental welfare
CPS
check?
show up to my house before. I've had police officers show up to my house for domestic violence disputes. I've had
No, I
all
said
sorts
mental
of
health check. I did not say
for a mental
interaction.
health check. I don't think I've had that
Oftentimes,
particular
mental
experience.
health
Hold on, wait, I just want to
checks-
address. I just want to address one thing real quick, okay? People seem. I know that like when we talk about socialism and left-leaning government stuff online, we all have these really great views of social workers and the state. Okay, to
not
a
really
lot
a
of people,
left-leaning view. It's a
especially
pretty
people that
ubiquitous
have,
criticism.
it's absolutely not. When you are a person that has had negative run-ins with the state can be incredibly fucking terrifying to deal with.
You mean the
When
police?
you've got
Wait, what was the
child
negative
protective
interaction they had?
Hold on. When you've got child
What
protective
negative
service-
interaction did they have with the state?
I have to finish the sentence, okay?
Is it
if
the
you've been
police?
somebody that's had run-ins,
It's the police,
it could
isn't
be
it?
the police, it could be social workers, it could be
It's
child
probably the
protective
police, I'm
services,
guessing.
it could be people related to tax collect. There are all sorts of agents of the state where you might have a
CPS?
really friendly, fuzzy view of them, but if somebody's had negative
Yes.
run-ins with the state, these can be the most terrifying people that you ever deal with in your life.
A lot
Yeah, I
of the
agree.
times, the mental health
are-
check also involves sometimes, right, the neglect of the family members or the the aggression towards other people, right? Like every mental health case is going to be different.
So yeah, any case of anything is going to be different. I think that while there isn't going to be specific data on the fear people have of cops versus social workers, I think it's reasonable to say, given the fact that we do know many Americans distrust the police, or at the very least are anxious around them, that's very common, that a mental health crisis is a time where those fears could be elevated, and you would be more likely to be amicable towards a guy in a polo shirt with like an ID badge than somebody in what cops wear, which is some combo of military and police gear.
I think the reason why you
when
feel it is
people
because you
have-
don't understand
when
what those social
you need
workers
to,
represent.
You need to interrupt less, okay?
Wait, dude, you
So
talk for like 20
the,
minutes of your talk. I just keep cutting you off. You cut me off 30 times.
You interrupted
don't
the panel, man.
understand
I'm just
what
compensating
those
for that.
social, You don't
no,
understand
it's
what
okay,
those
it's okay.
social
Let me
workers interrupt.
finish. It's fine.
Oh,
So
man.
most people's negative experiences with the state are going to be with cops, not social workers. So if you're talking about pre-existing biases against the state, I don't think there are people out there like, yeah, man, I had a bad run-up with the state. Those social workers fuck you up. It's usually
Stardust, can you
cops.
please
CPS.
unmute me?
And
CPS.
It can be your
Please
probation officer.
unmute
Like the
me.
thing is, you just
And
don't know
keep in mind-
anybody that's had negative run-ins with the state because you don't
And keep in mind-
understand what that experience is like.
and keep in
Like,
mind,
so
we're-
you say you're talking so clueless.
we're
You're like, oh, well, the only
only
people that are
talking-
truly scared of the state are like poor black people that get murdered by cops. Like that's your only experience because on Twitter that's the only connection you have to people
You
that
are
have run-ins with the
projecting
state.
very hard right
no,
now.
it's
Would
I'm
you
not
like to argue with
projecting.
Twitter?
I'm going with exactly what you're saying.
Twitter
I'm
on
just
this
saying that
panel?
for you to
Is he in
say,
the room with
who are
you?
you talking to right now? For you
Who
to
are
come
you
out and
talking to?
say,
Wait, who are
for
you
you to come
talking
out and
to?
say
Where's
the only
Twitter?
negative interactions you truly have with the state, generally they're with police. There are tons of negative social interactions that you can have with the state that aren't police. Now, for wealthy
And
or middle class
generally,
people,
it's the
generally
police.
it's not. It can be, but it could be
Generally,
others as well. If you're the type of person that has mental
Uh-oh.
health crises,
I
it
don't
might
know
be a
why-
social worker.
I don't.
Right?
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't know why. It's very indicative to me that you don't have a point to make when I say it's probably the police, and your counter argument is it could be other things. That's what probably means. Not
Because,
100%.
because it's
Any
probably
question?
when we talk about the broader population, the most common social type like employee you're going to run into is going to be the police. But if you're somebody that has mental health issues, that might not be the most common type of person. It might be a social worker. It might be somebody representing the state that's about to fucking commit you somewhere because you're a threat to yourself. This is why some people don't even go to therapy because they're so scared that if they say something that sounds suicidal, they're going to get deferred or reported to social services
But
and they're
they'd
going
be
to be
okay
like
with
committed somewhere.
cops more than a social worker.
It's not about. I would be more
Anyway.
okay with cops and social workers
Oh,
for reasons that aren't
Anyway,
related to.
this is so we don't really have anything to go off here but Destiny's intuition, in spite of the fact that data on anxiety around police is recorded and
You
there is
have
such
no
data for social
data. What are you
workers.
talking about?
But wait,
Wait, why are you
there's-
pretending
wait,
you're making
there's-
data-driven
wait,
arguments?
Hold on. There's no data on whether or not people tend to feel uncomfortable around the police.
Oh my
That's
God,
not
can
what
you
we're
just put it
asking.
in
There's
chat
no
if you're
data.
not
That is
heard of
what
it?
I
There's,
just
there's
said.
no,
Very
there's no
specific.
data. Hold on. There's no
So-
data on whether or not sending a police officer or a social worker to somebody having a mental health crisis is going to have a better outcome, or is going to make them
claim there
alleviate
was.
like some
You should
concern.
listen a little better. I specifically said we have data on whether people feel anxious around the police. And keep
It's
in mind, by the
people
way,
in general.
we
I
are
feel anxious around the police
focusing
in traffic. That's not the same
very
fucking question.
tangentially on the mental welfare check issue, which was kind of a side issue to the broader point that I made. Police get called to a ton of stuff. We're hyperfixating right now on how fearful people would be of which type of... And I think I'm completely right on that mind, but there are also tons of things that cops do that they don't need to do. Cops agree on this. They agree they're overworked. They know that a lot of their work is paperwork and doing rote, bureaucratic stuff that could be done very well by anyone else who's literate or has basic interpersonal skills. And all I'm really asking,
have a
and this
social
is all
worker
I've
do
asked
the
since the beginning,
paperwork.
by the way, is we should be open to the possibility that we should be more specialized with these roles, because we're never going to have data on any of these things until we're more accepting of social workers being sent out. Let's start with them doing stuff that we know has like a 0% chance of inciting violence, like noise complaints, or there was a robbery at my house. Can you come do some paperwork? Stuff like that. To my knowledge, these are not the types of things that lead to violence. We can start with that. Those two on their own, that would probably take away 10 to 15% of the time that cops spend on out there. And that would be, and social workers are much less expensive than cops. Let me tell you that, okay? For a
Not
number
if you're
of reasons.
talking about endowing them with all the liabilities and all the training. Like, yeah, they're
Not all
less
the
expensive
training.
than cops. They're less expensive than cops because they don't have the training to like break into places or assume the liability to do that or have to go and write and file police reports. Of course, they're cheaper. They have less
All I've
responsibilities.
said so far is two things, both of which require basic literacy and interpersonal skills. They could be done by pretty much anyone competent enough to be a social worker. And I also think there are benefits to doing that because, again, there's something inherently escalatory about cops in this country. We recognize that. They're trained that way, and we know how people tend to perceive police officers with the way they dress and act, that social workers don't really do. So maybe...
To be clear, the cops aren't supposed to be inherently escalatory. Cops are supposed to be
I
inherently
didn't say they were
de-escalative.
supposed to be.
Yeah, no, they
when
just
you-
are,
Guys, if I
right?
can-
When you
if I
call
can-
a police
Field
officer,
argument?
when you call
If I-
when you call a police officer, the point of calling the police officer is to de-escalate a situation because it's heading in a direction that you don't want it to go. That's the
Point of calling
that's the
a
reason why you
police
call a police
officer could be a
officer.
number of things. And also, I
Okay,
never
guys,
said this
I
was
actually
supposed to
need
be
to move
escalatory.
on from this topic because this is like
Well, you
have
brought
other
Destiny on
topics.
because he wanted to talk with me. I mean, this was kind of inevitable.
No, I came on because I hate hearing people give shitty takes about like what social
Why were
workers
you
do.
hearing it?
What because I get linked political
Because
shit
you were,
on my stream.
because you were listening and you got fuming, didn't you? Well, you did a
I
great
didn't
job
get
debunking
fuming.
it.
I just get upset when people say stupid shit like a welfare
If I
check is the
checked your
cops
clips, would I
banging
see
on their.
fuming?
How many times are you gonna keep
Oh, my
interrupting
fucking
me
God.
while
I've
screaming or
watched
crying?
it
Let's
so
go.
many times.
Oh.
It's the beginning of every fucking gay porno. It's like,
Jesus
yeah, bro, like
Christ.
they walk up to each other and they're like, no, I'm gonna fuck you. No, I'm gonna fuck you. And then
Jesus.
it's like, it's literally it's like watching the beginning of a gay porn.
Yeah, when
All
I
right,
hear
Destiny, you had your
misinformation
shot in
online, that's
Nashville.
incredibly
Not
important.
happening.
I usually like to come on and correct
Is
the
anyone else
misinformation.
really?
I got
You
it.
did a great job.
A welfare check
Yeah,
is when
can you
someone
guys
chugs a
feel the
monster and kicks down a
warmth?
door.
I'm getting, whew. I got to open up the window. My God.
I appreciate it, but we got to move on to the very serious MS Paint round.